Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this episode is brought to you by our patrons like Baba Meow and Miaruru. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, consider backing us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies. Thanks for your support, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to FGO Wanted, the show where we talk about upcoming 5 stars, and we see if maybe you want them or not. And maybe if you don't want them right now, you'll want them after this video is done. So as a reminder, this is a really quick, short summary. Well, maybe not so short, because people keep telling me to make them longer, so we're aiming for like 10 to 15 minutes as opposed to 5 to 10. Anyway, what we do here is basically we cover the history of a character, like what they're actually based on, any lore they might have that's relevant to Fate, that sort of stuff, individualized to the character as they appear in FGO. We talk about their actual mechanics and mechanisms, because some people don't care about story, they just want to hit things harder. And then lastly, we talk about Rarity. And today we'll be talking about all 4 of these things about Sanzou. So, before we even get into any of the other normal segments, we should probably talk about 2, I think, things that are out in the open. 2 obvious elephants in the room. Don't look at me like that. This isn't the voice of Saint Quartz. There's not going to be a joke about boobs right here. Maybe later. But the first off is Sanzou isn't limited. Alright, so yes, you're correct. She's not limited. However, let me explain this to you. I took stats and probability in college. It was the only math course I ever was good at. Okay? I was terrible at all others. The actual statistical likelihood that you will get a spook and you will roll Sanzou on rate up when she's not on, or rather, when she's not on rate up, when it's somebody else's rate up, or even just in the story gacha or whatever, for funsies, are astronomically small. We're talking ludicrously small. Like, even in the story, it's still like, however many different servants there are that are SSRs, like, divided up between 1 in 100 times. It's a 1% chance every time to get that 5 star, and then God knows which one it'll be, Obviously, yeah, I've rolled 5 stars on tickets, stuff like that, but, the chances of getting a specific one are small, so you're going to want to roll on her rate-ups, okay? It's just bananas. Yes, there'll be anecdotes. Oh, I got spooked by Scheherazade while rolling for Merlin. That happens, but statistically it's very small. You should not count on that being you, okay? Take a swing at her rate-ups if you want her. And hopefully if this you want her. The second is names. So I said Sanzou earlier, and God knows what the thumbnail says right at this moment, but it might say Xuanzang, or possibly you pronounce that Xuanzang, or Xuanzang. There's a lot of names for this character, okay? Through the video, I will try and use Sanzou because that's shorter, that's a little easier to say. I know I have this problem sometimes as a guy who reads, but a lot of English speakers and other probably related languages are often tripped up by the way Chinese uses the X, so that's kind of a thing, and it's easy to try and avoid that, just avoid stepping over that hump in the word. So we'll say Sanzou because that's the Japanese pronunciation of her name, and when she actually talks about herself, she'll use the name Sanzou. But, there's Tang Sanzang, you can say Xuanzang, like, multiple different ways. Tripitaka is another common translation into English of the character's name, based on Sanskrit, I believe. Stuff like that. It's nuts. Okay, all of them are technically correct, they're just ways different languages choose to render the same name. Okay, let's move on to the actual episode. So, the character of Sanzou, or, in this case, the ultimate historical character, represented by Xuanzang, or Tang Sanzang, stuff like that, was actually a historical monk in China who journeyed to India to recover some Buddhist scriptures because they were concerned about the nature of the current Chinese translations of some Buddhist literatures, okay? That's the basic historical outline. There's more historical detail there, but we're not going to cover that because that's not really what the character covers, because the character is more based off of the famous work of Journey to the West, which was a later folklorification, mythologizing of that journey, that pilgrimage. So that takes the character of Sanzou, who is given a mission directly, kind of by Buddha, but also by Guanyin, the Bodhisattva of Mercy, to basically find a pious person when they grab Sanzou and have them go on a journey to recover the scriptures. This has been like my video on Iskender, there's so much there. That is one of the pillars of Chinese literature. It's vastly impactful to many other Asian cultures. Obviously, the Japanese have their own version of the character's name, so they have their own work on it, etc. Dragon Ball was originally heavily influenced by a lot of aspects of Journey to the West.
Son Goku is the Japanese variation of Sun Wukong. We'll talk about it in a second. So we're not really talking about the details, just the novel Journey to the West mixed in a lot of elements of Chinese folklore and mythology, Taoist philosophy and theory, and Buddhist teachings into the work. You encounter stuff like Taoist immortals, bodhisattvas, that sort of stuff, mysticked it up. And in that story, Tripitaka, as the common translation into English is accompanied eventually by 3 disciples. There's the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, who's kind of, conned into it. And in some cases is basically the main character. Then there's Zubaiji, sometimes called, Pig, Piggy, Pigsy, that sort of thing. And Sha Wujing, Sandy, stuff like that. Common translations. And they all kind of team up. And that's actually relevant to FGO's Sanzou to kind of bridge into that segment because her attack animations are based on their weapons. Also, I say her. So let's cover that first as we move into FGO lore. Yes, the character in FGO Sanzou is a female. This isn't like FGO's usual gender flips, though. I believe it's mentioned in, is it materials or something? But there's a mention in the background, like by an artist or by a scenario developer, that the choice to make Sanzou a woman is based on, I think, a specific female actress's portrayal of the character. I don't know if that was just a female actor portraying that character, or if it was actually female in story, but through the years, this story is very popular. It's been adapted and changed around multiple times. There have been cases where the character of Sanzou is said to be either feminine or outright is a woman, sort of thing, right? So this isn't necessarily a new trick that FGO has pulled. It is inspired by specific adaptations of the media and is not necessarily a great new realization, right? So there's that. Now, Sanzou doesn't really have any big relationships in Fate before she was first introduced in FGO. Obviously, there's the Journey to the West event, which will be its own little event thing. She will reappear in Camelot. That's where becomes unlimited, as we mentioned before earlier. She is only limited on this banner, and then she goes into the permanent summoning pool. There, she'll have more involvement in the story, more than Tamo, for instance, to sample that before. But that's something that obviously will come later. Other than that, not really a lot of involvement, I think, in any major plots or stories. I should mention that I'm pretty sure Sun Wukong has a design as a heroic spirit, like either a brief description or a sketch art. I want to say it was in one of the magazines that are often affiliated with Type Moon stuff. Maybe it was Kohei Ace or something, where Guda Guda kind of stuff appears. Not sure. But, yeah, so there's that. That might come into play later. Also, funnily enough, because the Monkey King is amazingly skilled at all sorts of things, including illusion, as a character they explicitly said that they can appear as male or female. So, hey, you never know if they appear as a playable servant in FGO. Who am I kidding? We're gonna get giant monkey titties. Hopefully audio doesn't go down too much. So yeah, that's, your background and lore and stuff, and here we are. We're at, getting close to 10 minutes as I record this. So let's move into mechanics, because that's always fun. So you've been watching that element this whole time, probably. So let's cover it. So base stats, Sanzou is pretty interesting as a caster. Her attack's not super great as far as attack goes, but she is the highest attack base of a caster. So if you want to hurt things as a caster, there's at least her starting niche, alright? Now, do remember casters have a negative multiplier. It's very small, but it's there on their damage. So, don't be expecting a whole hell of a lot, but out of all casters, I think, but specifically also 5 stars, she's got the highest attack. So it's a decent attack on average. Her HP's kind of okay. It's low compared to a lot of 5-star casters. They tend to be weighted more towards HP. I think it is the lowest out of 5-star casters, actually, as I say that. So maybe a little bit squishy, but definitely got the offensive power to keep up with it. Her other, the hidden type stats, they're okay. Her star absorption and star generation are average for a caster. That's not great, but it's not necessarily, bottom tier berserker levels either. If you want to necessarily do crits, you're probably going to need to enhance that somehow with some add-ons. And NP Gen is okay. It's not the highest, but it's alright. I've seen higher, but remember, she has 3 arts cards, as you can see, and a passive skill to boost arts effectiveness, so it'll probably be a pretty good game there. And yes, as we said, you can see her deck right there. She's got 1 quick, 3 arts, and a buster, a typical caster deck. Decent hit counts on those 2, so not necessarily going to generate a lot of crit stars, necessarily going to generate a lot of damage. More of her damage comes from her Noble Phantasm, so the Palm of the Buddha, 5 Elements Mountain, where she open palms the shit out of the enemy. This is the beautiful thing about Sanzou here. She has a single target buster Noble Phantasm. It just does damage. Its overcharges, it reduces enemies' critical rate. As you can see, it's at a pretty high percentage, and it's overcharge based. So if you put her in an NP chain, or if you're lucky enough to maybe roll an extra copy or 2, that's not necessarily unheard of. if you're just rolling. But you can get a decent drop in that critical. And honestly, putting her in an NP chain is probably not a bad idea because she can't bust her Brave Chain. You could also try Buster Arts to just refund her NP. You'll probably get a decent back. She's got some decent hits in there. Though I believe Buster won't generate any NP on its own unless you overkill if it's the first card. But anyway, yeah, you can get two back from those Arts cards and then decent amounts back from her 6-hit extra. Pretty good. You will use it to kill assassin bosses. Like, what were you using to kill assassin bosses before? Probably trying to juice up a Media? That's okay, especially if you can throw some shit on her, like bonus damage from an event or, just go nuts with, like, Black Grail or something. But Media's main advantage is that A, it removes buffs, and B, it self-charges. So basically, if one rule breaker doesn't do it, which it probably won't, well, guess what? You can do another one right after. Especially since she has a very good self-charging skill. Speaking of self-charging skills, let's talk about Sanzou's first skill, High-Speed Suture Chanting A. So not only is this a phenomenal NP steroid, if nothing else, it starts at 50%, which means you can immediately put whatever you like on there. Halloween Princess, if you're trying to use her NP a lot, you can put Scholars of Chaldea on there if you want to try and boost her healing so she doesn't die as much if you got a healer to support her. Like, if you're trying to run Assassins, you might, throw a Irie. Wow, that name escaped me for a second. But an Irie or a Media Lily on there. And then at its highest levels, it's 80%, so you can go really bottom tier with some CE combos. Like, if you see a CE that has some other effects you might like, you can go as low as that and then still be able to turn 1 NP drop. And then on top of that, it's a 10 to 20% NP steroid, which is great because, hey, guess what? You're going to use her NP. She only has 1 Buster card on her own. You're going to need that NP to actually do that damage you're looking for. Now, her second skill is a little confusing because, like we said, her HP is not the highest. But, I mean, it's super lore compliant. Everybody always trying to attack poor Sanzou. But it's a taunt skill, and it reduces damage taken for 1 turn. So it's kind of like rolling a taunt and an invincible together, only not, because it's that. It's not the greatest, but you can use it with other stuff. Like, you might combo with poor Mash, so Mash doesn't have to take the hit. We've said this before on our main show, Let's Talk FGO. Taunt's very powerful, being able to control who gets hit in a turn. You could easily do it. Like, if you were running, like, say, a mixed node, and you were fighting assassins currently, but you were going to fight casters later, so you brought a rider along, you could taunt to make them attack her instead, and significantly reduce her damage. If there was an NP effect that, like, you don't want going on somebody else, but she can tolerate, that's okay. But yeah, it's not ideal, but you'll figure out a thing to do. The other thing important is to remember that she does have a decent NP self-charge, defense, so that can kind of be a thing, when you can use it to recharge your NP, but otherwise, yeah, it's a bit of a niche skill. You're not going to probably rely on it a lot. Her third skill, though, is very good. It's a decent team-wide buff on NP generation, star generation, and then it gives you 1 turn of debuff immunity. That debuff immunity is very handy as a team-wide thing. Alright, very useful for certain annoying skill pops or NPs from enemies. And then, of course, not that I think, 10 to 30% will necessarily give her specifically a super great star gen enhance. It'll push it up to a decent level, but not necessarily a superior level, but she's like the 1 quick card, so you're not going to do a lot with it, but it can definitely help out other people on your team, like if you're using somebody to gen crit stars to try and feed to Sanzou for some reason. The NP generation is real good, especially if she's in a team with, like, casters. And then, like I said, debuff immunity is great. And then we've talked about her passives. So she has an arts card buff, territory, pretty common. That helps the NP gen, makes those arts cards hit a little harder. Good bang for your buck. And she also has a divinity, which overall makes her hit harder in general. Very useful. By the way, she has divinity because at the end of the story, Sanzou becomes a Buddha, a Bodhisattva in her own right. This form, I believe, would be technically pre that because the way Tarot spirits work, but there's still a little bit, there's that kernel of Buddha-iness in there, which gives you that slight extra damage. Not a lot, but just a little extra damage. Everybody loves that little bit extra. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure that every Wanted we've done has involved a Divine Servant so far, because we've done Iskander, Kintoki, and Shuten, and now Sanzou. So let's talk about Rarity, finally. Well, you're in luck. Sanzou's not actually that rare. Well, first of all, as we said, she's not a limited, so technically she can appear whenever, when you're just rolling in a story pool or rolling in any old rate-up, really, unless it's, like, say, a Chaldea Boys, where female servants are locked out. So, obviously, she's going to come out in Journey to the West, or which is being labeled as Sanzou coming to the West, or Xuanzang coming to the West, which is one of her names. And that's common. Other than that, she appears a lot in class-based summoning campaigns that are out in Japan. Those aren't super great because obviously she's competing with other 5-star casters like Waver and Tamamo, but they're all pretty good, so you might take that shot just to get a chance to get her specifically because it's, a rate up for casters in general. She is also sharing rate ups with Maeve in the second part of the summer experience in next year, not this year, but next year, for the story, which also includes a couple of other casters you might like. So again, that's a split one, but it's a thing. And she will obviously have a day rate up in the Valentine's event. Not the rerun of this year's, but 2 years from now, the Chocolate Garden, this one, where Semiramis is introduced. Not only will she be in that pool because it's female only, but I believe as a 5-star female, she has her own rate up day. And of course, there is the Sanzang Coming to the West rerun, which just happened in Japan not too long ago. Last month, basically. So there's that. So she got a few. There's also an interlude campaign she was part of, but I don't know if that'll happen in the English server because our interludes tend to come out as soon as they can, right, code-wise. So I don't know if they'll have a whole campaign about it where she will be on rate up. But as always, it's possible, she's just in there. Otherwise, if you're not getting spooked, just hold out for the rerun, like you can get a big solo or maybe one of those class rate ups, you can try your luck. And of course, she will be in a lot of paid pools. The first anniversary pool, because she will be out like a month before it happens, you should obviously think that she'll show up in that. So that'll be a good possible chance. And yeah, that's the show. So everybody, I hope you liked that. I know that was a little longer than usual, but everybody's been telling me to do longer ones, so we did longer. We had a lot of stuff to cover, I think, between the 3 or 4 normal sections and little stuff extra at the beginning. You can go ahead and let me know your thoughts on the length of the episode in the comments down below, because yes, it is that time of the episode. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it. That not only helps the video circulate, but also is a really easy way to give us feedback and let us know it's succeeding. People are liking it, literally. You can also join in the conversation on our Discord. That link is in the description. And of course, if you're new here and you've not already, please subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell to turn on notifications if you haven't, because that is very important to actually keep track of our videos. You can also keep track of us by supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other stuff. Little goodies, little interactives, stuff like that. So check that out. And anyway, that's the end. I will see you whenever the next 5-star appears. And also check out regular Let's Talk FGO.